Hi everyone and welcome back to Freak Sense TV. I'm your host, Charlie Freak. Now, today's very special podcast was recorded last week with Santos Bonacci. And Santos and I have been working on this podcast for quite a while now, as we want this to be very special, as we see this as becoming now and in the future as the go-to resource for the full holistic understanding of the raising of the chrism oil as tying into human physiology, which connects us to the four rivers of the Garden of Eden. And the four rivers of the Garden of Eden are within us. They are our four principal bodily solutions. This is our cerebral spinal fluid, the CSF, which includes the chrism oil and our semen. It is our blood, it is our saliva, and it is our urine. These are the four rivers of the Garden of Eden. And the Garden of Eden was eternal life. And when we allow these four sacred rivers flowing within us to remain in a state of homeostasis, which is alkalinity, balance, harmony, then our physical bodies perform all the functions that are necessary to allow our cells to continue to regenerate again and again and again. And this is the key word, and this is really the key understanding of this podcast with Santos and I, is regeneration. It is the regeneration of the human body again and again and again. And this is tying in our physicality with our metaphysicality as we ascend up our 6 in-body chakras, illuminating our 7th crown chakra to become the ascended man. This is our truth. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hi everybody, welcome back to Freak Sense TV. I'm your host, Charlie Freak. And again, we have just another amazing show planned for you, and it is with our great friend Santos Bonacci, just the giant in the truth movement, the one who sees all things connected and has a holistic understanding and how everything relates back to the one. All is a tomb, and that, my friends, is syncretism. And the title of our show for tonight, the long-awaited ultimate podcast on the raising of the chrism oil, is Raising the Chrism Oil and Our Human Physiology. And Santos and I were talking a couple of days ago, and what has really come to me as I've gone through this process is that the raising of the chrism oil, the understanding of this process, the meditation, the connection to God, all of this is not about 3 days, your 3 days when the chrism oil, the milk and honey is released within you. That what this is about is a complete lifestyle change. And I know for some of you, this is probably not what you want to hear, but it's unfortunately for you, it's the truth. The truth is that you cannot live wild and reckless for 25 days of the month and then expect to cure all by being holier than thou for 3 days. It doesn't work that way. So what we're going to do is just jump right over to Santos, and he can discuss this overdependence upon the 3 days of releasing the chrism oil, and we'll just get going with the entire show. So let's start by saying a very good day to you, Santos. Hope everything is going well. I'm so excited about this show.
Lovely. Thank you, brother. Thank you for the nice introduction and for inviting me to the show, which is a pleasure. And this is the subject that I really need to do properly. So I hope I do a good job. I've done this subject over the years many times, but I feel that all of them, all the shows up until now have been inadequate, and I know that because people, when they write to me with all the questions that they ask about this subject seem to have a lot of holes in it. They've misunderstood what I'm saying, or they haven't taken notes well. I know some get it and they fly with it, but others will write and say, for instance, how do I know when the quarter moon or the half moon is in my sun sign? And they'll describe the moon. And I think, why are you describing the moon? I've never described the moon. I've just always said in my presentations, when the moon is in your sun sign, that's when the seed is generated in both man and woman. The Christ seed in the solar plexus. So this is the subject we're going to address, and it's all about the chrism, which gives you your personality and charisma. So if you want to have charisma, you need to have a lot of oil, as the 5 wise virgins in the Gospels did. They carried extra receptacles of chrism oil, and they had charisma. Therefore, the Lord married them. And the foolish virgins who ran out of their oil, obviously squandering it in sexual, licentious, indiscriminate behaviour, hence they had to go off to the shops to get more oil, and they missed the groom, and they were going to be sitting on the shelf, weren't they, because they didn't have enough oil. Mm-hmm. So if you want to be married with the Lamb, as it says in Revelation, the marriage of the Lamb, well, alchemy explains what that is. It's called the alchemical marriage, where when you raise your chrism fluid, that is all the cerebrospinal nervous fluid, which is a gaseous oil, when you raise that, or its frequency at least, that gas and oil returns in its pristine original state and more to the cerebrum whence it came. To be more exact, the claustrum, the holy claustrum. That's what the Sante's anatomy calls it, and the Gray's anatomy.
That's right.
Yeah, or sometimes they will call it the Santa Claustrum. Yeah, good old Santa Claus at the North Pole, eh? Well, see, your head is the North Pole. Your head, heaven, heaved up. All those words are the same thing. And that's where the pineal gland is, the third ventricle, the optic thalamus, Mary Magdalene, what's that organ in your head?
The amygdala.
Anyway, all of these glorious things in the head. You've got your hippocampus. You've got the hypothalamus, all of these things. These are all the holy things in the head. And the claustrum is a little cloister or closet, same words, just under the cerebrum, and it produces all of the oils, all of them, that go through the cerebrospinal nervous system and the vagus nerve, the pneumogastric nerve, which runs. It's called vagus because it's like a vagabond, vaguely going around, feeding all the vital organs, spleen, heart, lungs, etc. So when you keep these oils pure, and your blood, of course, there are 4 rivers. There's 4 liquids in the body, as there are 4 rivers in the Garden of Eden: the Euphrates, the Tigris, the Pishon, and the Gihon. And they correspond to the cerebrospinal oils, the blood, the saliva, salvation, salve. All of those words come from saliva, and we'll treat that in a minute. Salt, same word. So you have Christ being described as the blood of the world. You have him described as the oil, the Christus oil, and you have him also described as the salvation, the salt of the earth, and he teaches salvation. Well, these are all in reference to your liquids in the body. The 4th one is the urine, which is also the gold.
It is urine, gold.
Urine, yes, they're all gold. They're all for your healing, brother, all of them. The salt. See, the salt, the Christ is called all of those things. The bread, etc. Well, this This chrism oil is called the manna from heaven because it comes from the head, and it proceeds from the claustrum and it goes down the endocrine system, beginning its journey at the third ventricle, where it becomes differentiated as an undifferentiated pure essence. It gets divided at the pineal gland and at the pituitary body. The pituitary is Mary, the mother of this Christ, and the pineal is Joseph. And what they do is they differentiate these two glands. The pineal gland sends positive oil, charges it positively, sends it down the pingala. So pineal, pingala. You won't forget it if you do that word association.
That's right.
Right. And then the ida is feminine, and it is associated with the pituitary body, which is the master gland of all the endocrine system. And it sits in the sphenoid bone, which is the Ark of the Covenant of Moses. And it has the Ten Commandments, and it has what? The manna. The manna from heaven was stored by Moses in the Ark of the Covenant, which is your sphenoid bone and the pituitary body. If you look at it in Google Images, you will see clearly it's the Ark of the Covenant, and you'll see the wings of the angels. You'll have the major wings and the minor wings, and they touch unto your temples on the side of your head. So these are the two temples, Boaz and Jachin. Okay, and the Ida and the Pingala are associated with these two temples. And so what occurs now is that oil proceeds, and it has to go all the way down to the sacrum, where sex and procreation occurs in the human organism, in the human masterpiece of creation, an alchemical laboratory, the like of which there is nothing in the universe. The beautiful human being. And yet the human being, well, I like to use that word, I've reclaimed it. In legalese, it's not a good word to use. Yeah, but in syncretism, it's a beautiful word. We are man and woman, and we are called human beings. So when you reclaim these words and give them their original status and meaning and glory, then you can use them correctly. So what man has forgotten is this holy science of how to raise the Christ. Remember, Jesus was teaching Nicodemus, a teacher in Israel, in the gospel. And Nicodemus said, how am I to be born again? Which means, how am I to be born of spirit? Because I'm already alive in flesh. How can I be born again so I can go back to my spiritual unconditioned state whence I came? Well, Jesus said, what? You are a teacher in Israel and you do not know? Right, so if the teachers of Israel, the priests and the gurus don't even know about this process, which is clearly described in all sacred scripture, especially the Bible. Read the works of George Carey and the God-man, the Word made flesh, and all of his other works, and you will see how he explains all of this from the Bible. The wonderful book, which is the Bible, which talks about this regeneration process. So the oil, oh, by the way, and Jesus told him how to do this process. He says, unless you lift up the serpent, the Ida, the Pingala, the Kundalini and the Kundabhafa, up the Shushumna, which is the chimney or the ladder that Jacob climbed to go up to the pineal gland, where he called it the Penuel. Here's Jacob, Israel, struggling with an angel, climbs the ladder of the spinal column and gets up into the cranium again and sees the pineal gland and says, I've seen God face to face and I have not died. I shall call this place Penuel. Well, that's clearly the pineal gland. And so as he struggled with the angels, we also struggle with demons and angels on this plane, and to raise the Christ. And Jesus said that. He said, unless you lift up the Son of Man, you will not be born again. The Son of Man that's another way of naming this bread, the manna from heaven. It's also called the Son of Man, or the Son of Manna. from heaven. The manna is dealing with manu, which is the mind. So whatever comes from the mind, from the claustrum, is the son of man. Okay? So if you want to lift up the son of man, well, that means to lift up the oil, the bread that was given to you from Santa Claus at the North Pole. He's very kind to go all the way down the North Pole, down the chimney, and to bring you presents and goodies, you see. And so as these two fluids go, descend down the chimney, they reach the thyroid, the third of the endocrine, 7 endocrine glands. And it is further differentiated. So you see now this fluid that was pure, because of course Mary the Virgin, she's pure. She ain't no whore. The 5 foolish virgins, those were allowed.
Queen Ishtar of Easter fame is a whore, is the queen of whores, Babylon.
That's right. It's always a whore and a virgin at the same time. Virgo. See, Virgo, it's interesting. I'll just throw this in. It's a very promiscuous sign with some Virgons, very promiscuous, and yet very, very virtuous on the other hand. You will notice this dichotomy with Virgons. You'll notice it with all the signs, but the point is, Virgo is what's called a sterile sign in astrology. Leo, Gemini, and Virgo are the 3 most sterile, quote unquote, signs. So if you've got either one of those rising in your chart, it's very unlikely that you will have many children. You may have one. I've got Leo rising. I have 1 son. That's about it. And I've noticed this reading the charts of many people. Virgo rising, Leo, Gemini, but especially Virgo, because we're talking about the virgin and the whore. This is why it's called the virgin, because it is sterile. And when it's prominent in the chart of individuals, they usually do not have many children. It does create sterility, and there are signs that create fecundity, like Cancer and Taurus and Pisces. Those signs rising, I've found as well, reading the charts of thousands of people, that they have many children. So you see, astrology is a sign based on science and electromagnetism in particular. And it divides the arc, the 360-degree arc of magnetic waves, electromagnetic waves, into 12 pieces. And it's the only science that can tell you all the different states of energy along a 360-degree cycle, ecliptic, wave, whatever. Whereas all your scientists today, all they can tell you about is the positive half of electricity and the negative half, like the 2 terminals on your battery. They have no idea that there are 30 degrees of different states of energy along any ecliptic or any wave of any kind of energy or manifestation, whether it's a thought wave, a light wave, a sound wave, an emotion wave, it matters not. They are all in 12s. Everything happens in a process of 12. So I just thought I'd insert that to, assert the prominence of astrology and only astrology as the mother of all sciences. And the one who is ignorant of it, according to the Egyptians and the mystery schools, woe unto him, his poor soul shall be lost forever, who does not know the science of God, the science of light, which is astrology. In fact, it's one of the 7 liberal arts, and it's the last of the quadrivium, and yet they call it astronomy. The fools of this world who think that the quadrivium is numbers, music, geometry, and astronomy. How can that be an art? Just the bland science of naming stars and just putting them in there in the heavens, in the dome of the heavens. No, you need the art, the language of astronomy, which is astrology. So very few people realize that you need to replace the word astronomy with astrology for the quadrivium. And if you don't, you will see what your destiny will bring you if you decide to reject and ignore the word of God, which is astrology. Only a fool who is perishing and who wishes to be eternally damned will ignore the science of astrology, the word of God.
So, exactly, and I'll just quickly interject for everyone listening. This is the difference between alchemical science and our physical realm science. And all of the greatest thinkers in history have come up with all of the most brilliant ideas that have challenged us and have led us into new avenues and new pathways, have done so through alchemical science, the laboratory of the mind, the third ventricle of the brain. It is not our physical world science that we've been told to swear to, adhere to above all else, which is flawed. As you say, the science of electricity and the half positive, half negative, and they know nothing about the 360-degree arc of magnetism.
Exactly, and to their detriment, and that's why the world is suffering. That's why we're paying for electricity, we're paying out our back ends for everything, because we've forgotten this holy science of magnetism, of God, of light, and how to regenerate oneself by lifting up the Son of Man as Moses did in the wilderness. Remember, he said, as Moses lifted up the copper serpent in the wilderness. Copper. Now, why would it be copper? Well, first of all, we know it's very, very conductive, but copper is also one of those malleable elements which makes bronze or brass. So it's hermaphrodite. And so the copper serpent is dealing. See, copper is just it's another way of saying brass or bronze, which is copper and tin or copper and zinc and all of those male, female metal combinations, acid and alkali, right? This is the alchemical science and what it's in reference to. A serpent is the kundalini, because a sine wave energy is like a serpent. It waves like a serpent along the ground. So it's the same. The sin of Eve, you just translate that into the sine wave. Look, write down the word sine wave, and then under it write sin of Eve, and you'll see what's going on. It's the sin of the virgin, the pure one, becoming a whore. See, we were all pure once in our original state, and when we decided to eat from the tree, which is incarnation, we became the whore. So we have vices and we have virtues. And no one can say, oh, yeah, that just relates to you and everybody else. I'm perfect. No one can say that. They are both a whore and a virgin, a virtuous virgin at the same time. So how this regeneration and reinstatement of our purity occurs is by regenerating the fluids which have descended down the chimney from Santa Claus, down the thyroid, down the thymus at the heart, down the adrenals at the kidneys, and down and through all the endocrine system, and eventually it there becomes the sperm in the male, and it is now a substance in the female which is to do with her reproductive cycle. So now both man and woman, alchemically in their beautiful laboratory, have made beautiful fluids ready for procreation. Now, here's the trick. Mm-hmm. To have sex and then climax with an external explosion ejaculation is not the way we are supposed to be procreating. This is how you generate imbeciles in the world. Thieves, liars, deceivers, and degenerates. According to the teachers like Samael Aoun-Weor, who was a Colombian in the 60s and 70s, who wrote a book called The Perfect Matrimony, which is dealing with sex that is non-ejaculatory. And that's how he explained how serious and how awful and detrimental has been the outward ejaculation for mankind. Because the moment a boy ejaculates the first time, that's the day that he begins to die. As it says in the scripture, the day you eat from that fruit, baby, you will positively die. Now, it is a known fact that parents know the day when their children first ejaculate, not masturbate. Don't confuse masturbating with ejaculation, folks. Masturbating, sexuality, all that, those are all electrical gifts from the heavens. When your pastor says, oh, you shouldn't masturbate, well, that pastor is a masturbator. Let me reassure you, because everyone does, and you have to. You must. You must explore your sexuality. What you must not do is eat from that fruit where you ejaculate the sacred fluids which will give you everlasting life. That's what you must never do. You must never eat from that fruit. And this is what little boys don't get told, nor do little girls. And so we go off and we discover that masturbation is pleasing, and so we do it, and then we do it for a bit longer, and then oops, all of a sudden there's a climax to it. And we weren't told that, just breathe it in. Don't you expel that. That orgasm, you breathe in, you squeeze your muscles down below, and you regenerate that. Remember, the Christ said, lift up the Son of Man, lift up the manna, regenerate it. Because what the purpose of our bodies is to be reinstated in our former state and to be holy and to be made pure and holy through this process. And when the man is disciplined and he does this, he learns how to internalize his orgasms, and they go up the spine, and as they do, they burst the chakras. In Revelation it says, and the Lamb was worthy to open the seals, and the lion, and only the Lamb and the lion were worthy to open the 7 seals. Well, those are the 7 chakras which are in your temple, which are in your body, and the lion is the heart chakra, and the lamb is the crown chakra, because that's where Aries is, the lamb, and your heart is where Leo is, the lion. And those are the 2 chakras which direct the raising of this fluid. And as they go from the sacral, the second bottom chakra, as it rises from there, it's not ejaculated, it's restored and returned, not restored yet, but returned. What happens is, and you'll feel this when you start to practice white tantric non-ejaculatory sex, you will feel that a surge of energy is going up your abdomen, up the spine. And depending on how advanced you are in this practice, you will feel it go all the way to the pineal, to the crown chakra. You do anyway. You do regardless. Even the ejaculators, they get 3 seconds of this when they have their degenerate, satanic, demonic ejaculations all over their partners and defile them. In doing so, what they are doing is they're practicing the death cult, number 1, and they're defiling their partners, number 2. And what they're doing is they are creating a state of acidosis in the body. This process, rather I should say, balances the pH. All right. So when you ejaculate, you go into acid mode, death. The body, parents. I remember my son. He told me the first time he masturbated, because we're very close. I think he was about 13 or 14, and I remember his energy just shifted. It changed. And I remember as a Jehovah's Witness all the years speaking to different ones, parents, that would tell me that they could tell when their children first had sex or ejaculated, because their energy changed. Something happened to them, and they could tell. And what happened was death. It is death. You see, if our children were taught never to have plenty of sex as they want, but never to ejaculate, ever, their eternal life depended on it. And by the way, that's the secret to eternal life, by the way. That is it, by not ejaculating. The children who don't ever ejaculate will live forever. They will beat all the elements and they will live forever.
Let me interject for a sec, because what's tied into that as well, of course, is that by not ejaculating, you are, as Santos said, opening or having right to access the seven seals. The seven seals, as part of obviously our seven chakras, is the Kundalini magnetic energy system. And again, magneticism or magnetic energy is like a coiled serpent that rises, and these are longitudinal or scalar waves, what some have attributed to Tesla's work, Tesla waves, and these are eternal waves, whereas waves of electricity are temporal, and they are used up, and that is a perfect analogy for exactly what you're talking about the sexual act and keeping the fluid or expelling the fluid, the death cult. And I'll just also quickly interject, when Santos is talking about eating from that tree, eating the fruit from the tree, there's two trees in the Garden of Eden, the tree of life, and then there's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This is what Santos is talking about, that got Adam and Eve expelled from the perfection of Eden, east, is the despoiling of this sacred fluid. So I thought I'd just quickly interject those two things.
Yeah, good point. And this is where a lot of confusion comes in the churches, because the pastors have got no clue what they're teaching, and they confuse people when they tell them, when they often say, oh, it was the sin of sex. You hear people say this often, even pastors, but mostly common people. Oh, well, why does God give you sex? And then Adam and Eve had sex in the Garden of Eden, and then and then he killed them, because they had sex. No, they had the wrong kind of sex. Rather than being pure virgins, they were whores. So we have the same choice. We can ejaculate and be whores, like the prodigal son, or we can remember our Father who is in the kingdom, like the prodigal son. He remembered that the food that he was in his Father's kingdom that they were throwing to the swine is the food that he was eating outside of his Father's castle. So he said, I'm going to return back to my Father, and he slept with the prostitutes and drank with the intoxicators, and so he came to his senses. And see, you and I, who have ejaculated because we did not know any better, we can still regenerate eternal life.
That's right.
We may not be able to achieve it in this body, but the moment we start on the trajectory, on the narrow road that leads to everlasting life, you see, there is a narrow road, and it does lead to everlasting life, folks. These words are not written down in the scriptures for nothing and defended and protected over millennia and millennia and millennia, even by imbeciles who don't even have a clue what those words in the Bible mean. They even protect it, because it's a holy, sacred book teaching how to be saved, you see, by the Christ within, not the historical Christ without. You see, and by raising that Christ, and each and every one of us can get on that road to everlasting life. Broad and spacious is the road leading to everlasting destruction, and many are on that road.
Yep.
And as in the days of Noah, men will be eating and drinking. Why is eating so bad? You see, the churchgoers, they keep saying, well, you have to eat. No. Well, you don't. In fact, it's telling you that eating, which is the word which is hiding in the word death, but it's also hiding in the word health, is there to kill you. And they will be eating and drinking till the flood came and swept them all away. So the point is that, as Jesus said, the kingdom of God is not a matter of eating and drinking. And then in 1 Corinthians it says, what, do you not know that gluttons will not inherit God's kingdom? Now, this eating business is all about being a consumer, you see.
Yes.
When you become a virtuous, pure one, and you walk on that narrow road, very cramped and difficult road, then you'll never come off that road. There's only one way on that road, and that's forward. You can't turn around. And you may not reach everlasting life in this body, this vehicle, but you will ultimately. And that's the key. And so our journey begins at the sacred with sex, sacred sex. You see, the sacred is sacred. And the secretion, which comes from the claustrum, is called the secret, because secret is in secretion. So the sacred secret, Colossians 1:27-28, that Paul wrote to the Colossians and said, I reveal to you the sacred secret which was not known to the ancients, which I give to you now, of the Christ in you. And so the key here is the words sacred secret. Well, the secretion starts at the head, goes all the way down the chimney, good old Santa Claus, bringing gifts, lands at the sacrum, at the bottom of the chimney. The children go on Christmas Day, pick up the presents. You see, there's always a star at the top of the Christmas tree. The Christmas tree is your spinal column, by the way. And that's why the middle part of the spinal column is called lumbar. Well, you know what lumberjacks do, don't you? They cut down lumber, trees. So that tells you that it's the Christmas tree. And then the next part on top of that, which is the thoracic, has 12 vertebrae on it. 12. And then on top of that is the cervical. It starts with Sir, doesn't it? The top 7 vertebrae. 7. Sir is the heavens, people. So just look at your 33 vertebrae, because we're going to get to that number. The top bone being called the atlas bone, which pivots the cranium. That's the number of years that this seed, this manna, must be sacrificed. You see, Jesus gets crucified at 33 and a half. Well, that's the 33 degrees of Freemasonry, and those are the same 33 vertebrae. And you've got to go up that lumbar tree, the Christmas tree. But at the bottom is where the prezzies are. And what you do is you open those presents, and if you respect and treasure those presents, you will, like the foolish slave who invested his denarii, and the two foolish slaves who buried their denarii, and when the Lord returned, he said, what did you do with your denarii? I gave you a denarii, slave. Oh, I was afraid, master, I buried mine. Right, into the dungeons you go. Second slave, what did you do with the 2 denarii I gave you, the 2 talents? That's a better word. One gospel says denarii, the other one calls them talents. I like the talents because they are talents, gifts, abilities, and we go and bury them, you know. The Lord gives us a beautiful soul, full of love, a heart, appreciation, divinity, the Holy Spirit, blood, cerebrospinal fluid. And what do? We eat junk food, we have ejaculations, we get drunk, we take drugs, and we inhibit the alchemical process of the oil rising and returning to make us 1,000 times more powerful than we are. Because as the fluid ascends up the spine and it bursts the 7 seals of revelation, it bursts the chakra in the heart of the lion, it increases its vibration. And by the time it gets to the 3rd ventricle, where the pineal gland is waiting, once it gets to the 33rd vertebrae, it is 1,000 times more powerful than its first pristine, undifferentiated state. And then the pineal gland begins to produce what's called the blood of the Christ. It's like DMT, dimethyltryptamine, that is the milk which is produced the honey, which is produced by the pineal gland, and the milk by the pituitary. This is the land of milk and honey. And so when you return the Christ and get him crucified up there on the 33rd vertebrae, then you begin to illuminate. You have a halo, you have holiness, and you have purified blood, because the pineal gland now has been transformed into a gland which produces a super secretion, and it's called the blood of the Christ, and it purifies your blood and balances your pH. So when you begin to practice non-ejaculatory sex, that's the moment you begin to balance your body's alkalinity and purify yourself. So the journey begins there at the sacrum, and let's begin to explain the process of how we regenerate this fluid, because so far I've just been skirting around it and describing. I haven't explained anything, but I've laid down all the descriptions and all the information you need. So, sure, it begins at the claustrum in the first instance, but that's just one half of the process as it descends. Now what we're interested in is the second half, where we have to put work in.
Yeah,
because the first half, that's natural. You breathe without thinking about it. Your heart is pumping, or rather magnetically allowing blood to be channeled throughout the whole body. So what happens is we now, as we can intervene in our breathing, and we can control our breathing, we can also intervene on this process. If we don't, the process may never happen, or it may take years. Now, people ask me, how long does it take to raise the chrism? Well, it's a lifetime. You could do it tomorrow and have a quick one. Like you could have a Kundalini experience, but that will go. Eventually, you'll forget that. It won't just. It won't be like that all the time. So it's a lifetime. Whereas it could happen tomorrow, it could happen next week, it could happen in 5 minutes, it could happen in 500 years. It depends on how acidic you are, how evolved you are, how spiritual you are, what conditions you're living in, how your body's health is. There's many factors. And so I don't really understand why people are concerned with those details when you just put your chin down, and nose down, and just do the work. Just do it. Don't ask how long it's going to take. Some people want everything given to them. Let's go to McDonald's. You can eat in 3 seconds. They don't want to go and buy all the good organic food, cook it themselves. So they ask these questions. Well, I never answer them. I say anything from 1 second to 1 billion lifetimes. Okay? Now, go away and just do what you have to do and work, and do some work instead of sitting around asking questions, waiting for good things to come to us. So we can, we can be good or bad by degrees with this work, this holy work of raising the chrism, and get results according to our labour. Okay, but this is how it goes. Every month, the moon, every 29 days, the moon goes through all the zodiac signs, and she spends 60 hours in each sign. Okay? So each one of us has what's called a sun sign. I'm Aries, next door neighbour is a Libran. You, brother?
Cancer, the Cancer sun sign, Colleen and I both.
Yeah, Cancerian, okay. Anyway, but we'll get to all those beautiful organs in the head later. Because remember, head is the same word as heaven, all right? And heart. Look at heart. H-E-A. Head. H-E-A. Heaven. H-E-A. Because the lamb in heaven, in the head, and the lion in the heart, they are all heavenly and heart topics. And how do you get to the heart and the head? See, there's a lot of people out there saying, oh, no, you've got to stay centered in the heart. Don't go to the head. That's intellectual. People will get deceived, all these idiots who think you've got to go up to the crown chakra. Rubbish. Again, the blind leading the blind. There's always someone who's half-cocked and half-witted who's going to stand on his soapbox and blurt out everything he doesn't know to confuse people and make them as stupid as they are. So what we need to do is concentrate on the moon, because every month the moon transits or passes through your sun sign. All right. In my case, it's Aries, and today the moon is in Aries. All right. Now, it's a balsamic waning moon. It's right at the end. New moon will be on the 5th. Today is for me, it's the 3rd of May. On the 5th of May, in 2 days, it will be a new moon for everybody, because the sun's in Taurus as well, which is May, and therefore it's going to be a new moon in Taurus, because new moons can only happen when the moon and the sun are together. Full moons can only happen when the moon is in the opposite sign. So, for instance, in 2 weeks' time, after the 5th of May, when we have a new moon, you will know absolutely where the full moon is going to be. Because the sun is in Taurus, so the full moon has to be in Scorpio, opposite. Yeah, exactly. 180 degrees opposite. So you see, astrologers always know where the full moon is, because they ask the question, well, where's the sun? Well, if the sun's in Aries, the full moon is in Libra. If the sun is in Taurus, the full moon is in Scorpio. If the sun is in Gemini, the full moon is in Sagittarius. But the new moon will always be exactly where the sun is. So, let me explain this. Today, the moon is in my sun sign. It's in Aries. Okay? Tomorrow, the moon enters Taurus, where it will be a new moon for everybody. But for me, right now, it's my personal new moon, because the moon is where my sun is in my chart. My sun is in the 3rd degree of Aries, and the moon right now is in the 17th degree of Aries. So it's in the same sign. It's transiting my sun sign. So, when the moon, don't describe the moon, please. Don't ask. When's the full moon going to be in my sign, Santos? I never said the full moon, the new moon, the blood moon, the blue moon, the balsamic moon, the gibbous moon. I've never described the moon when I'm talking about this. I've always said just the moon. Okay? So, it might be full on the day that you have the transit, because it might be, if you're an Arian like me, and like last month, my moon transit, it was a full moon. But that will I'll only have a full moon transiting my sun sign once a year. It'll only happen once a year, and that will be in Aries. Every Aries, I have a full moon transit of my moon in my sun sign. And in Libra, that's the only time in the year when I can have a new moon transit. Okay? So it's no use asking me, oh, when's the new moon going to be in my sun sign? And can you explain to me what my sun sign is? Well, you can do this by just going into Google. What is a sun sign? And what is a moon transit? Well, a transit, when you're in transit, you're traveling through. So the moon always is traveling through your sign once a month. And that is when a psychophysical seed is generated in the chakra just above the sacred chakra, where, by the way, just under the lumbar of your vertebrae is the sacrum. The 5 fused bones, the heaviest part of your spinal column. It's called the sacrum, and that chakra is the sacral sexual chakra, and that's what they call it, the sacral chakra. So you see, the sacred secret is about the secretion which leaves from the heavens, comes down to earth. You see, the children of Israel ate the manna, didn't they? That came from where? From heaven. And that means that they, well, they were fed on the manna because, you see, this is the interesting thing that George Carey explains.
Yes.
That fluid which proceeds from the claustrum is the fluid that is required to build every cell and corpuscle in your body. You will not live without the claustrum. You would not have any organs. You would not have any blood. You would not have any sperm. You would not have any saliva. You would not have any blood in you, because it is all born from the claustrum. The claustrum is the mother of all the food which goes out into the Garden of Eden, which is your body. As we practice correct sex and we breathe in at the time of the orgasm, we breathe it in, you can channel it. You just squeeze your muscles down below, the same muscles that you do to prevent you from urinating incontinently on yourself or defecating on yourself. Okay? You're standing in front of the toilet, the toilet's busy, it's occupied, you're waiting for a vacant cubicle. Well, sometimes it's up to 5 minutes and you're sitting there squeezing what? You don't squeeze your fingers. Yeah, you squeeze the bottom of the torso and you squeeze good, because your girlfriend's waiting outside and you don't want to have brown patch on the back of your pants when you go out to the movies with her. Okay, so you learn to squeeze those muscles. And if you don't, you will be an ejaculator, a prodigal son, a squanderer of all the life force. You will lose your charisma. You look at these brain-dead ejaculators. You can see they look dopey. Like Cullen Smith, Danny Wilton, Christopher Lord, guys like that, Johan Oldenkamp. I use that not because I hate these guys, I love them. I'm just giving them as examples because they're out there on the internet telling people that ejaculation's the way to heaven, and pig bum eating and all of this is the way to get to heaven. So they are the poster childs of debauchery and degeneracy, and I will use their names forever. And in the new world, their names will be under the word debauchery, ejaculator, fool, deceiver, degenerate. When you go to the dictionary, you will see their names. And on top will be Cullen Smith. So I have to say that because you need the antithesis. You need the enemy of this truth, and you need to see the poster child of evil and how deceptive these evil degenerates are who teach the opposite of this holy truth, so that they can fill the world with demonic death. They are the death cult children, poster child.
It's the thing is that these things need to be said, and as tough as it is at times at naming somebody's name, the fact of the matter is there are so many people out there, the very forefront of this so-called truth movement. So many of these people, it just almost seems to be ubiquitous that if you have the most amount of subscribers, followers, legions of fans, and most hits on your videos and stuff, you just don't seem to get any of the biggest truths. And the fact of the matter is, folks, this is should be so obvious to you. Things are so bad. Things are so upside down and so ridiculous. It may hurt a little bit, but the fact is, if we don't start hearing some truth, if we don't start really, really waking up every single solar day and living the truth, we're going to get to a point where there is no going back. There is no raising the chrysamal. Because remember, part of this process that Santos has hinted at all through the first part of this podcast is that to raise the chrysamal, you cannot be the prodigal son. You must be virtuous. And believe me, alkalinity is not just of food or beverage. Alkalinity is thought as well. We have to have alkaline thoughts. And alkalinity, balance, homeostasis only comes through syncretism. It only comes through connecting to that one truth that finds its way through the middle, through the center of all other truth, that connective fiber that runs from heaven right down into the brain, connects into the spine and grounds us. That is truth. That's syncretism. So if what Santos is saying might offend you in the moment, that a certain name is being given. It's time. We have to start speaking the truth. And if you're not prepared to hear it, you're not going to raise the chrismo, because that's all part of this process.
Yes, and exposing the liars is our duty. As the prophets of God were always ordered to murder and destroy and expose the prophets of Baal, the false teachers. And these guys, I mean, they use names like, for instance, Cullen Smith. Cullen comes from Colin, which is Cohen, which is to con. He's a con artist. You see, the priest, the Cohen, the Colin, the Cullen, and he's a smith at it as well. So he thinks he's a bit of a wordsmith. He keeps talking about syncretism, giving it a bad name. You've got no idea what it means, but he's a consmith. That's what his name is. I think these guys have actually haven't got their true names. Why would you call yourself a consmith and have an entertainment channel? And you see all these guys. You just have a good look at them. Look at their channels and see how dopey they look. I mean, to me, it's obvious they've ejaculated their brains out totally. There's no spirituality. They are godless. They are the godless throng, debauched. You can see legions of demons swirling around their energy, and they open their mouth and they sound so stupid, and they think they're smart. And they've got all of these ejaculators clapping their hands. Every time they do a fart, they go and watch their farty videos and smell their farts and congratulate them on the stink. Oh, lovely video, Cullen. Some more smithery. You're a great con artist. And the show goes on, and it's all entertainment. The blind leading the blind. It's a circus out there. It's a circus.
It is. And what you don't see, and I was so thrilled to hear you say this, this is how Colleen and I live our lives. It's all about doing the work. If you want to please God, pleasing God is the penitent man who tries. God loves a trier. You got to try, and trying is doing the work, and the work is this sacred procedure. And that's why I started the show by saying that this sacred procedure is not these 3 mythical days where everything in your reality changes by being good for 3 days and all of the sins of the other 25 days are washed away. That's not what it means at all. The 25 and 3 separation between the 28 days of a month is the difference between being in the physical and being in the metaphysical. And when you're in the physical, those 25 days, the 3 kings, they're still working through the third ventricle of the brain. It's still the pituitary gland. It's still the pineal gland. It's the hypothalamus. It's melatonin, serotonin, dopamine during those 25 days, the physical days of the month, and it's the chrism oil, the milk and honey in our CSF for those 3 metaphysical days. And you see that everything within us works from that central chamber within the skull, Golgotha, is that central chamber, the third ventricle of the brain. Everything magical in your existence. This is where the Ark of the Covenant is located. That's what the Ark is holding. That is what it's protecting and supporting in that middle. And you got to do the work. And this is the work. And it's not 3 days a month. It's 28 days a month. You have to be doing this work. And so like it says in the Bible. And so how does God know that you are doing the work? That when you walk down the street, there's oil in your lamp, and it can be seen by all the heathens as you walk by.
So no need worrying about these 3 days excessively and whatnot, because in my way of living the holy and pure right-hand path, I'm always not living in debauchery and excess. So those 3 days in particular, of course, should be sacred, but they shouldn't be really considered to be the exception of behaviour. No, you don't just be pristine and good, because I've always explained in my presentations that during the transit of the moon in your sun sign, You need to be very careful. Overeating, over-drinking, over-sexed, all of these things will create a condition of acidity in the body. And the psychophysical germ it has a protective coat, covering, layer, like the cell membrane. And if there is acidity in the body and excess due to overeating or alcohol, whatever, this coating will be burned away and the seed will not survive. So when the moon is transiting your sun sign every month, you've got 13 of these every year. The moon transits your sun sign 13 times every year because there are 13 lunar months. So we should be having the Mary Magdalene 13-month calendar and respect it in conjunction with the solar. We don't replace anything because a lot of people want to just throw the baby out with the bathwater and replace this 12-month. No, the 12-month system is perfect. It's the perfect energy system. Everything needs to be divided into 12. 13 is about the 13th member, the unity member, which embraces all the 12, because Jesus is the 13th member, remember?
That's right.
So, yeah. As this is happening, this is a good day for you to be meditating, doing yoga, fasting. I always fast. Yesterday I fasted because it was the first day of the transit. Today, I could have fasted, but I've just finished a 62-day fast and I've been eating fruit and herbs for the last probably about 20 days now, and so yesterday's fast was enough. I thought I'm only going to fast the one day, and then because the new moon is coming up on the 5th, I'm also going to fast on that day. I always fast on the new moon, which is the universal new moon, and then I always fast on my personal new moon. Remember, folks, please remember this. Just remember this. When the moon transits your sun sign, that is your personal new moon. You are the only one. You are the only one, and others who are born in your sun sign, of course, that is benefiting from that energy. And it's a good time to start your new beginnings, your aspirations, your goals, and your goals should always be good. And you always make them on your new moon. You can also do it on the universal new moon as well, of course, because it's more, non-personal and is connected to everybody else, whereas your personal one is very important. But as long as you understand that there are two new moons in your chart, a personal one and a universal one. Okay, so now is where all the good bits start happening. So the moon is transiting your sun sign like mine was yesterday. I was trying to not get angry, not to get too tired. I didn't eat, of course. I drank very little. And I did as much meditating as I could and relaxation. Now, when the moon enters Taurus, it will be out of my sign. That will happen tomorrow. So, should I then say, well, great, now I'm going to have some sex and I can ejaculate now because I saved the seed? No. From the new moon to the next new moon, should you ejaculate at any time in between, you will have lost that seed. You may have gotten a little bit of a benefit from it if you raised it for a few days. I mean, if the ejaculation was toward the closer to the new moon, then you wouldn't have got as much benefit from it. But if if it happened later towards the end of the month, you would have got a little bit of benefit from it. But guys, it's just not worth it. Just learn to practice non-ejaculatory sex. I've done it since the middle of 2012, never looked back.
And the example that you gave is so brilliant, because there isn't a male anywhere across this vast plain that hasn't done exactly how you explained it. There are times that we've all faced an inability to excrete our waste in the moment, and therefore precisely those muscles and that sort of physical movement action that you're doing is the precise, is exact same. So it's a perfect analogy, Santos. Anybody can do it. It just requires, as you say, breathing, being consciously aware, breathing, and then using that exact same process. So you can do it.
Yep. And don't worry about, have I reached the crown chakra? I get emails like that as well. When will I know? When will I know when I reach the pineal gland? How long does it take? What should I eat, etc.? Well, look, this process is going to happen anyway. Breathing's going to happen. Your heart's going to be circulating the blood. It's going to happen without you doing anything. But when you intervene, when you step in with your mind and your beautiful heart, you can speed the process up. And don't be asking when. When is it going to happen? Because it's just a foolish thing to ask. It's like, when am I going to be mature? When am I going to be married? When will I find love? Dude, go away. I've never asked any of those stupid questions anyway, and then you ask me? I don't ask those questions because I don't care about that information. I just care about put your nose down, do the work. That's the only way you will reap the rewards. Yeah. I grew up on a farm. If I didn't plant seeds at the seasonal time, I didn't eat. And I would be considered a fool by my neighbours. So you just put your nose down and get the job done. Stop ejaculating. Stop eating pig's bums. We weren't ever meant to eat any bums. Fish bum, chicken bum, any of bowel cancer and all kinds of degenerate diseases, which I will never have. So you will feel, as long as you don't ejaculate like the incontinent, incompetent ones of the world, the godless throngs, as Ovid called them, and Plutarch, as you practice this holy sex, you will feel each chakra during the course of intercourse. How about that for a pun? So during the course of intercourse, you will feel you will notice that as you breathe in the orgasm up the spine, it will hit the various chakras. You'll notice it by degrees. And any orgasm or ejaculation you have hits the crown chakra. That's why asking the question, when am I going to get to the crown chakra, is ridiculous, because every time you have an orgasm, not ejaculation, because we don't do that and we're not talking about that, but for most people, an orgasm is the same as an ejaculation. There's no difference. Anyway, when you have an orgasm, any kind of an orgasm, whether it's the physical ejaculatory one or the spiritual one we're talking about here, you reach the crown chakra, but you reach it by degrees. So most of us have all of our chakras activated, but the top ones are not spinning that fast. That's all it is, and you have to activate them in such a way so that they spin at their right speed. And there's various yoga you can do to do that. For instance, the 5 Tibetan rites. Anyone interested in good yoga, please look up the 5 Tibetan rites and do those 5 exercises every day, and you will balance your chakras. So, but the goal is to reach the crown chakra at 100%, not by degrees. The journey, I'm still not even 50% when I reach the crown chakra. I know it. I've got a long way to go, but at least I'm not incontinent, which means I'd be incompetent. At least I am channeling the energy in the right way and continuing, and eventually I'll get there. And what happens is, eventually you will have, you'll be able to instantly. The moment you engage in sex, you bring the energy straight up to the crown chakra, 100%. No degrees. So most of their people are having their internal orgasms in the solar plexus heart region, and then eventually they go through the throat chakra, into the pineal gland and the crown chakra, create unity consciousness during sex. The most beautiful thing you can ever have whilst you're having sex is to be one. And you can't do that if you're having ejaculatory physical sex. You are alienating your partner. You are separating yourself from them because you're looking after your own selfish gratification, your own sensation.
Like you described, defiling nature, defiling Mother Nature, defiling the sacred feminine. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. And women do not respect men who are only pleasing themselves. They can tell. No matter how charming you try and be and sophisticated and suave and romantic, the woman knows when you're just in it for yourself. A man must be controlled, like St. George or St. Michael. Mm-hmm. He must please his woman first. It's through his woman that he gets to heaven, because she then enables this process of the Kundabhafa interacting with the Kundalini, which is the Kundabhafa. The woman is Kundalini, Magdalene. That's what Mary Magdalene means. It's connected with the amygdala, which is Mary Magdalene, and the Kundalini. Kunda is the goddess, which gives you the word, C-U-N-T, yeah, and because it's from the Kunda, the goddess of the Vesica Pisces, that all life comes. Okay, so this is the Mary Magdalene energy, and only through the woman, through your partner, can she enable this. So if you please the woman first and only, I never have sex to get a reward out of it. I don't see sex like that anymore. I used to. I was an ejaculator par excellence before 2012. Oh, you wouldn't have got a better one than me. I knew how to do that stuff real good. But I always found that I just felt guilty, empty, exhausted, depleted. I felt wrong every time I had sex from when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Sex always...
I can agree with that wholeheartedly, yeah.
The moment I stopped ejaculating, brother, was the moment I started pleasing my woman, the moment I started expanding my consciousness. It was the moment that after sex, I felt good. I didn't have any guilt, no sort of this shame, this awful, what have I done? I just had sex and yet I feel awful. I want to sleep. I'm angry. I was always angry. Every time I had an ejaculation, I come home from say work that day and abuse everybody, just be angry. And the thing with non-ejaculatory sex is that the woman is always guaranteed to be pleased. Why? Because you never get tired. I can do a stint of 1 hour with my beautiful partner, and go and have a coffee for 10 minutes, and then come back and do another hour if I feel romantic, But it's not about lust. It's not about sex. I don't gratify my sensations with sex because I am St. George. It's the same with food. I don't let food, just run me around because I'm hungry. Like you see people, they'll kill to have a meal sometimes. They're just controlled by their appetites. I don't like that. Do not like to live like that at all, brother. Although I do have desire for sex, yes, and I am hungry for sex and food and drink, just like you. I'm not saying that I'm special, and I'm just saying that I'm doing the right thing through accurate knowledge, okay? And therefore I get the results. I would be dead if I didn't do all the protocols I did, brother. I would be dead. People look at me and say, oh, well, you're not a very good example for health. You're skinny. You don't look good. Yeah, I know. But you're judging a fish by how well it climbs a tree.
Yeah.
I've had torture for 10 years, more than that, itching and sleepless nights. I would have died, I know, 10 years ago if I didn't do the things I did, the vegan diet, the protocols. So, you see, a fool is the one that just jumps into judgment straight away. It's a shame. As you go up these chakras, folks, the blessings, the expansion of consciousness, etc., is untold. You cannot put a value on it. You cannot put a price on it. But you will discover treasures beyond your imagination, things waiting for you when you learn continent sex. You will learn things that the like of which others will take lifetimes to learn. And I'll share some if I can. But let's just go back to this breaking of the 7 seals and the lion that is worthy to open the 7 seals. The 7 congregations that are in Asia. This all happens through consciousness expansion, folks, and sex is the best way to do it. Sex is a consciousness expander. Why? Well, because you're doing it with your partner, you love your partner, and you have 2 consciousness. Where there are 2 or more in my name, I am there in your presence with you.
That's right.
So you bring the Christ with you when you are practicing unity sex, because guys who just please themselves when they're having sex, they absolutely put a wall between them and their partners in a spiritual sense. Physically, oh yeah, they do well. Then no problems. They get their rocks off or whatever they call it. But spiritually, they will never know themselves. There's only one way to know your partner spiritually, and that is to be one with her through sex. You can do it other ways. You can do it through breathing. And of course, when you breathe properly in the tantric process, you actually do induce this other worldly consciousness which envelops you, and you all of a sudden, you become one. Like when you see the caduceus, the medical,
great example.
You see the 2 snakes at the top of the caduceus intertwined. You see them looking at each other. And that's what you do. That's the sexual engagement, where you lift up the copper serpent, and then the 2 serpents in the pineal gland are looking at each other. You stare at your partner from your third eye, not your 2 physical eyes, which are physical, but with your spiritual eye, the eye that is simple that Jesus spoke about. And that's the serpent, and you're looking straight into your partner's mind. I've been there a few times, and it's scary. And because it's so scary, you actually panic and you stop the process. So just a little caveat here, guys. When it happens, when you get into unity consciousness with your partner and you're having a mind-blowing orgasm together, it's going to scare you. And you will sabotage it if you're not prepared. You have to breathe through it and just be aware that it's very possible to merge your consciousness with another being that you love. And it's a beautiful feeling. And you will never do it if you're incontinent and an ejaculator, both man and woman. You must save the saliva, the salvation. You see, the salt, you are the salt of the earth. But how will the food be seasoned if you have lost your salt? How will the foolish virgins go off in the middle of the night to get oil? What if the shops are closed? What if the Lord comes out of his bridegroom chambers, bridegroom's chambers in the middle of the night at the hour in which you did not expect? You'll be left behind. What that means is no oil in your body, no salt, no chrism. You will be caught out. You will be exposed. You'll be found out, and you'll be cast into the fiery Gehenna until such time as you learn to raise that chrism. And so as this fluid goes up and up and up, you begin to feel it, and your consciousness grows. Okay? It doesn't mean you're going to be happier. It doesn't mean you're going to be smarter. It doesn't mean you're going to be richer or more powerful. It just means you're going to be more conscious. Consciousness is king. Okay, people go on about, love and light. Oh yeah, that's important. But Our essential nature is threefold, and it's Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat is what? So it's consciousness, bliss, and Ananda is bliss, Chit is consciousness, and Sat is existence. Those are the three essential natures. We exist, we are conscious, and we are blissful. And that is all the heart wishes for. Sat, Chit, Ananda. And Chit, you see, there's no love in there. People say, oh, we're love, we're light. No, we are Sat, Chit, Ananda. Okay. So existence, and this is where people get all off, and they start getting on their moral high ground when they think it's all about being better, more loving and more light. It's about being conscious, people. There's only one sin in the universe, and that's ignorance. It's not hate, it's not evil, or whatever you want to call it. You think, oh, love and light's going to save the day, just, don't be angry, don't do... No. It's consciousness, awareness, consciousness, because that is what is godly. If you are conscious of things, you see, why do evil people hurt other people? Because they're unconscious. They don't even realize that they're hurting themselves. You see how consciousness is superior to love? So it's no use preaching the love and light bullshit. That's what I call it, because not that of course I love light and love. I'm saying that love and light philosophy is pure bullshit, because it's only half of what we should be doing. We should also be angry. We should also be the opposite, because we live in that world. And we have to express both sides, okay? So when we arrive at the top, the spinal column, there is the medulla oblongata. And this is where the crucifixion happens, because the vagus nerve crosses over and forms a cross just where just above the medulla oblongata, okay? And medulla oblongata is, in the mythologies, this is Medusa. And when Medusa gets her head chopped off, that's explaining that Perseus is cutting off the head of an individual who is not going to ascend at the medulla oblongata. Everything stops there. The journey ends at the medulla oblongata. Either you get your head chopped off or you proceed further. In other words, you crucify the oil dies for 3 days in the tomb, in the fornix. Nothing happens, nothing special. When you arrive there, it's 3 days of death, of darkness. Then on the third day, an electrical signal is produced in the fornix, and the lateral chambers are the pillars of Hercules. And you'll see the lateral pillars, rather, not chambers. And what happens is there is like a membrane which separates the one part of the fornix from the deep chamber of the fornix, and it opens. It opens this, and this is the stone that was rolled in front of the tomb. And the two angels entered the tomb, and they found Jesus dead in the tomb, and he was luminous. And then the luminous Jesus came out of the tomb, and the two angels then disappeared. And then guess who turns up? Mary Magdalene. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is describing what happens once we return the Son of Man. Lift up the Son of Man. Up, up, up to high heaven, which you'll never do if you're an ejaculator. You'll never get to heaven. Never. Ever. And you will perish in eternal damnation with Cullen Smith and all of his boyfriends. And you will perish. You absolutely will. It's important and imperative that I denounce and name these people, shame them, pull these false prophets off their soapboxes and pull their panties down and expose their very, very, very tiny parts. And so when the holy sacred fluid reaches there and is crucified and then is rested in the chamber, on the third day the dormant brain cells, the pineal gland secretes the blood of the Christ, and all of the dormant brain cells in the cerebrum are activated. Okay? This is where Christ returns in the clouds. Clouds are grey, grey matter is the brain. So when Christ, you will see him coming in the clouds. Yeah, well, he won't be coming as in ejaculating. He'll be coming as in physically arriving, people. Okay, it's C-O-M-E, not C-U-M-E. So don't be thinking about ejaculating and getting into heaven, folks. It won't be happening. You will go to hell. And hell is a condition, all right? And then second, it is a place. But first, hell is a condition. But it is a condition and it does exist. So that blood of the Christ then balances the pH in the body, restores all of the organs to their proper functions, and the individual is now living as a saint. He has been christened, you see, because the charisma has been crucified, and he has been crucified on the cross, which means that he has actually done the process of reinstating the oil. That's what it means to be crucified. You don't get hung up on a cross and nailed.
That's what we're taught.
Yes, because in the physical world there are always reenactments of this. When you go to church, when you do your nursery rhymes, everything that we've ever learnt is all just basically harking back to this one science, this alchemical process of restoring the body to its pristine condition.
That's right.
It's in all the nursery rhymes, it's in all the Gospels, it's in all the legends, King Arthur, King George, St. George. They are all the same archetype hero. The hero is the man who becomes continent and competent. And he raises the dragon, he slays the dragon down below, and he raises the serpent on high. And he becomes a Quetzalcoatl, a Buddha, a Christ, a Muhammad, whatever. He reaches Allah in the high heavens, which Allah is, by the way, is known by all the esoteric masters to be the crown chakra, because the crown chakra used to be called A-double-L, Allah, the all-encompassing, the all-alone. Look at the word alone. It has Allah in it and it has one in it, because God is alone. There's no one like Allah, the one, you see. So how to save oneself? Look at the word save. It comes from salvation, S-A-L, salt. And it is by raising the salt, raising the bread, the manna, the oil, the fish. Why is Christ always associated with fish? Well, take a smell of your bodily sexual fluids, both a woman's and a man's. And what do you smell? It tastes salty and it smells like fish. Salt, fish, bread, manna, oil, salt, fish, bread. Continually these motifs are repeated in all of our religions, all of our philosophies. It's always the holy fish, the holy salt, the holy oil, the holy bread. And even the Freemasons, they only have three symbols: oil, corn, which is bread, and wine, which is the blood, and which is, of course, the same, because the blood is another. It's another part of this function, of course, because the blood ends up being purified. You see, so, but when it comes to the cerebrospinal fluid, it has many, many, many more nicknames. It has many more monikers. It has, because it produces the fluids that we use in our sex activity, and that's why it is fishy. It's the fish, and so when we respect these fluids, you see, and we learn how to work with them so that we can, for instance, when we think of having sex, for instance, we just shouldn't be thinking of one thing, pleasure and gratification. We should be thinking of alchemy, We should be thinking of God, our evolution, our spirituality, and serious themes. Sexuality is serious. It's not. It's also, fun-like and playful, yes, but there's the serious side, and it is very, very serious because you can do it wrong, and you look at prostitutes, right? Do they look healthy? I've never seen a healthy-looking prostitute. They stand there on the corner of the street and they look like haggard old hags, and they're only like 23. Sure, they take drugs, they don't sleep at night, they get beat up, that contributes. But, I mean, even their pimps look haggard because the pimps are having sex with them every day as well. That's part of the deal. And you look at the pimps, they're ejaculating all over them. And how do the pimps look? They're the ugliest humans you've ever seen. God, they look like Cullen Smith, dopey and degenerate. He looks like a pimp. He actually does. He dresses up like a pimp. He's always half naked. They're pimps. All of these ejaculators. Because they're pimping out their own energy. It's disgusting. The two worst things that humans have ever done on this plane that we live on, the two worst things are corpse eating and ejaculating. In one instance, you are ingesting death. In the other instance, you are expelling life from your body. So at one end, people are gluttonously ingesting death, corpses, putrefying corpses, the death cult. And at the bottom end of their torso, they're ejaculating all the life force that was in them in the first place. And every day, 3 times a day, they do this. They have 3 meals and they have 3 ejaculations. And this is the worst demonic practice in the universe. And all who practice such things will be punished by their own deeds. No God, no one's going to come and, throw them in a fiery pit. They will do it to themselves. Stupidity is the order of the day, brother. I'm very, very careful when I do my, I shouldn't say careful, but I'm very, meticulous about how I do my presentations. And if people don't like it, well, they don't have to ask me onto their shows. Just don't invite me. I'm happy. I'm happy to just stay at home and, and be happy, healthy and sexy by myself. I don't need to share that with people. But I know a lot of people don't like it when you start, expressing a little bit of hate towards something or, a bit of anger or a bit of, frustration. They want everything to be love and light and, oh, don't hurt my poor little ears. I want everything to be sweet, Santos. No, that's not how I work. And so, with all the good that you learn from this subject, you must learn what to avoid and where the demons are going to come and try to deceive you people, okay? Because in the end, the ultimate result is life or death. It's either a good ending, a good result, or it's not. And so it's in your power to decide. So look, I think I've covered everything about this. If I haven't, please, or anything you want to elaborate on. But this is the sacred process. This is how one regenerates their souls and restores their souls. This is how to save your soul, because soul also comes from salt. Okay, in French, salt is sel, S-E-L, and we have a word in English which is self, S-E-L-F, right? So what is yourself and myself and his and herself made of? Well, cell, because yourself is salt, and your soul, no mistake that soul, S-O-U-L, sounds like S-A-L, salt. Okay, so look at the words, study the words, and the words will teach you. In the word, in every word, is the truth of that word. In every word, there is an encyclopedia of words. But you have to look at the words as anagrams, lexicograms, backwards, mix them up, and understand the letters. And all words will speak to you.
That's just brilliant. And, again, just alluding to George Carey again, and another book of his, Zodiac and the Salts of Salvation. So much of what you said is touched upon there. The basic essence to life, the real essence to life, coming through the building blocks, cell, which is soul, which is salt, and is our truth. And, the thing that is just absolutely beautiful, the whole process is a mind-blowing, tingling experience, because when you hear the truth, it is holistic and it connects all things. It answers every single part of itself seamlessly. And when you listen to the truth, you get that tingling within yourself, because your essence knows that what you're hearing is, for the first time and probably in a long while, you're hearing actual truth, because it resonates with every part of you. And what you're talking about in terms of what is necessary in the process of raising the crystal ball, it's so beautiful. And then tying it into sex, non-ejaculatory sex with your partner, is so amazing, because what you're really talking about, again, is a virtuous lifestyle. It's putting others first. It's serving God's creation. And serving others first is the salvation of the self. And this is where we release the Kundalini magnetic energy within us, which is so vital, because unless we change our habits, which are all just bad habits taught to us from birth, then we're going to live an electrical life where everything is that, as Tesla described it, as a downward causation, constantly raining down upon us with temporal waves, electricity. And in our lovemaking, in our sexual intercourse with our partner, when we put the interest of others first, that is serving God's creation. And when we honor the sacred feminine, that is just a beautiful metaphor for releasing the Kundalini magnetic energy, which is feminine, which is the opposite of the masculine electricity constantly pouring down upon us, the weight upon our shoulders. The weight upon our shoulders is lifted, and we literally fly, we ascend. Again, this is why the baptism of fire is performed in the air, because in the air is a metaphor, of course, for silence and ascending. And this is meditation. And this is, again, serving God's creation through the service to others. And when we do this, we just have the most beautiful, selfless sex. And when you were talking about your experiences as you were going through this process, about having all of the sex, and then every time that you would have an ejaculation, you would just feel so devastatingly tired, and you would feel alone, you would feel almost sick of the process, sick of yourself, sick of the partner, angry. These are the same experiences that I had myself, and I can powerfully confirm in what you're saying. And when our life really begins to change is when we see that this isn't some 3-day process. This is a complete transformation of who we are, top to bottom, bottom to top. And this is all about the raising of the sacred feminine within us. It's all about exalting God's creation by service to others, instead of feeding the tapeworm, the ego, the left brain, the carnal world within us. And that's all we're taught from the moment we're born. Left brain, left brain, left brain, left brain. And everything you talk about and everything you mention with the crystal ball, it's all so accurate, and it's all about activating. It's all about rising up and then to the right, everything is up and to the right in the Bible, because the realm of God is the right hemisphere of the brain. Give me 10% in that Christian tithing. Give me 10% and I will give you the world. 10% is your left carnal, physical brain. And the 90% of your limitless potential, that is the right hemisphere of the brain. That is where the mercy seat is. That is where the kingdom of God is within you. And everything that you said is just so perfect, and it just completes everything that Colleen and I have been studying and learning about this ascension process, which is giving up that self, giving up gluttony, giving up greed, lust, violence, and giving it over, everything over into the hands of God's creation, which is virtuous.
Yes, brother, it's true. It is virtuous. There's vice and virtue in each and every one of us. It's our choice. So when you look at the fluids in the body, the four rivers, you will find that they all are named. The oily gas that is the nervous system fluid, the mercury. Well, mercury we know is Buddha. And the communicator, because it's our nervous system which communicates with organ to organ and organ to brain. So we see this as the archetype of the Christ. That's why that oil is called chrism. So the Christ in you is your spirit. Christ is in reference to the spirit of things, the spirit of the universe. The soul of the universe, that's the blood. That's why the Bible says, do not eat the blood, because the soul is in the blood. I remember I used to teach that when I was a Jehovah's Witness, because of their stance on blood transfusions. And they always taught that the soul is in the blood. Well, the soul is Jesus. The soul of the universe is Jesus. Jesus is in your blood. That's why Jesus of the Sacred Heart is always pointing to the heart, because it's telling you the soul of you is in your heart. Heart and soul go together. Mind and spirit go together. The mind serves the spirit. The heart serves the soul. We often get those two confused. We sometimes say, oh, that person has a good soul or a good heart, right? And we use those interchangeably. Then again, we use spirit and mind and intellect interchangeably. So you think with your cerebrospinal fluids, that is your spirit, and you feel in your blood, the passions in your blood, and that is your soul and your emotions. And in one is where Christ dwells, and in the other is where Jesus dwells, in the blood and in the oil. The Christ is the oil because that's what Christ means. And Jesus is in reference to the blood. But he is also in reference to the other two liquids, the saliva, salvation, and the urine, the gold of salvation, which will restore your health when you learn how to also recycle and reuse the urine. You don't just piss it out every day. There's topical applications, There's internal applications for urine. There's many ways to use this golden medicine, okay? Now, I just want to finish with one thing. The oldest religion in the world, the Persian Zoroaster religion. Here is what Zoroaster and Ahura taught with regard to ejaculating. Zoroaster: if a man involuntarily admits his seed in a wet dream, what is the penalty that he shall pay? Ahura Mazda answered, 800 stripes with the Aspehe Astra, 800 stripes with the Srasho Karana. Zoroaster: if a man voluntarily admits his seed, masturbation, what is the penalty for it? Ahura Mazda answered, for that deed there is nothing that can pay, nothing that can atone, nothing that can cleanse from it. It is a trespass for which there is no atonement forever and ever. The caveat. It is so if the sinner be a professor of the law of Mazda, or one who has been taught in it, but if he be not a professor of the law of Mazda, nor one who has been taught in it, then this law of Mazda takes his sin from him. If he confesses it and resolves never commit again such forbidden deeds. So in other words, it's showing here how our original science/religion, because they are the two faces of the same coin, has been forgotten.
They set up a system, mystery school system, and the schools were called seminaries. So, interesting that they would send young monks and young men into the seminaries, which is obviously a word which contains semen in it and is the same root. So why did they go to seminaries? Well, to learn how to use the semen, the chrism, to be saved, to ascend. That's what they were doing in their monasteries. And so they were semen retention centres. They were not seed squandering, seed wasting. They were true seminaries. And this is why they shut down the mystery school system, because young men were being trained in discipline. They were trained in honour. They were trained in the science of ascension and how to regenerate the body and live immortally by regenerating the chrism. So it's the most important thing for the young man to concentrate on the science of ascension for his salvation.
And it's very, very interesting how when you take a look take any kind of look at the monastic order of the monks within the Catholic Church, this was very, very much along the lines of what that pure group or that pure movement within the Catholic Church was noted for doing. Their beliefs were built upon the ideals and the teachings of the Essenes and the Gnostics, and that they were very much retaining their semen, and they were very pure of their bodies and of their minds.
Exactly, and that's how purity is achieved, by walking on the narrow and difficult path, which is the right-hand path. And as for the rest, they are on the left, the sinister, committing sin. Sinister, as you pointed out earlier on in the show, about going to the right, going to the east, as Bill Donahue speaks about. How do you get there? Well, it's the right-hand path. It's purification. It's raising the Son of Man up the spine, semen retention, learn all the secrets in the seminary, and apply them, and live forever.
And now we have degenerates running around all over the place, teaching people how to gloriously damn their souls in eternal perdition by ejaculating their way to hell. And the highway to hell is paved with good passions, good intentions, good thoughts, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Inverted. So, I mean, there's a lot of other goodies that I can read here from other sources, ancient sources. You really need to check out all the Neoplatonic philosophers who were continent non-ejaculators. See, half of these guys, like your Cullens and your Danny Wiltons, they don't even know their names. They wouldn't even know who Porphyry was. Porphyry would be rolling in his grave. Pythagoras, Plato. These were vegetarian non-ejaculators, And now we have these morons who go around listening to all the Jesuit so-called professionals on sexuality and how good it is to clean your pipes every day and masturbate all your juice out of your body, so you can be all old and dopey looking like a prune. And you look at them, some of these guys who teach ejaculation, like they're 30 years old, and They look so ugly. They look so dopey and so debauched. And people can see it. They can't hide it. They might as well not show their face at all if they're going to teach ejaculating, because they all look sick. They all look sick.
It's
you know.
very true. They do.
Yep. I remember someone saying, "Oh, Santos, well, well, he practices non-ejaculation and he doesn't look so healthy and he's always angry. Is that what it does for you?" Well, no, I'm not. I'm not saying, I'm any kind of an example in anything. I throw myself into the, like Samson, who said, "Kill me as well as the Philistines, O Lord, O God, please kill me with them." I'm as stupid as anyone I'm denouncing. Okay, I'm not saying that I'm exceptionally anything. I'm just glorifying the truth, not me. I'm not glorifying me or anything I do.
Exactly.
As in I found it and I discovered it and I'm the teacher of it and I'm the good one who's doing it. No, not at all. I'm teaching that if I didn't do any of these things, I wouldn't be around here, guys. Don't look at me as a measure, a gauge for how true and how effective what I'm teaching is. Don't do that. You will be as stupid as the idiot who grabs a tree from the water, a fish from the pond, and puts it up in the tree and says, "All right, let's see how good this fish is," in climbing the tree like the monkey did next door. He's no monkey. Well, you put the monkey in the water and it'll drown, you see. So you don't do that, As Jesus said, he said, do what they say, the Pharisees, but do not do what they do, for they are hypocrites. I include myself in that. I am a hypocrite because I've spent nearly 4 decades ejaculating and eating pig's bums. I'm Italian. We used to have pig sausages like there was no freaking tomorrow. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. Give me some of that salami, mum. Oh, nice. Fry it up. Oh, greasy. I've done all that shit. I've ejaculated I don't know how much of my brain. Now I'm starting to restore it. So I'm starting to restore that. I'm 56 here, guys. I'm not 26 like these ejaculators who look older than me in their 20s. I'm 56. My friends, I've had tens and tens of my school friends die in their 30s and 40s. And I'm nearly 60. How did I get there? Well, I know I should have been dead for all the debauchery that I practiced. Now I'm repented from. Hence the zeal and the urgency in my voice. Please, young men, please save yourselves. I don't care for you as an individual. I care for humanity because I love humanity. But there's no skin off my nose if you want to go being incontinent for the rest of your life and not listening. There's no skin off my nose at all. In fact, I enjoy being on these shows, but I don't need them. I don't need them at all. I think the ones who are receiving the information do, but not many people really do listen. I expect about 3% of the listeners to really get the full benefit from everything they've heard today. And I really do expect, I shouldn't have expectations, but I wouldn't be disappointed if the figure came back that 97% of the people who listen to me just laugh at me and think I'm a fool. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't even expect any better than that. When I first started this, I thought, well, how far is it going to get? The world is hopeless. But I went ahead and did it anyway.
Well, and you've influenced so many people. And, if I could just jump back in here, the thing, this understanding of the 4 rivers within the Garden of Eden, and of course, as above, so below. So the 4 rivers exist within us, these 4 sacred fluids that exist within the body. This is, I've done a couple of podcasts on all of this, and this is all about the other 25 days of the moon, the other physical days of the month, and how everything just is tied together, and how everything essentially is just running through the third ventricle of the brain. And you look at these 4 rivers within us, the 4 fluids that flow within us. When you follow this path, certainly within these 3 days, it's the only way for the chrism oil to raise. But when you follow this pathway during the other days of the month, you're doing the exact same things to all of your body. So when you practice this every single day as a way of life, as an approach to life, you are not just raising the chrism oil, you're raising health within you. You're raising awareness within you. And the ultimate goal, as Santos said, is raising consciousness within you. And the reason why, above this narrative of light and love, is consciousness, is because the ultimate goal to everything that takes you back home to syncretism is the connection between worlds, is as above so below, is connecting the physical and the metaphysical. We are here. This is real. This isn't who we truly are in these physical forms, but it's real. The experience that we're having here is powerfully real. And how we overcome the carnal nonsense and the lies that are forced upon us from birth is to ascend metaphysically. This is the chrism oil, those 3 days within the month. And the same protocols the Santos talks about, the same procedures that are going to allow you to be successful, to keep that psychophysical seed alive within you and return it home, return it back to home, so it can roll open the fornix and enter into that final chamber of the bridegroom, because you've got oil in your lamp. This whole process is also what's happening during the physical days of your month, of your life. And these 4 sacred rivers, if you look at them again, and you take a look at the cerebral spinal fluid and the blood and our saliva and our urine, they all need to be in an alkaline state. They all need to achieve what is called homeostasis. And homeostasis, for a lack of a better explanation, is the balancing between 2 worlds. And when we don't do these things, as Santos has showed you through the podcast, we become acidic. And when we are acidic, it eats away. That's why the perfect analogies throughout our physical experience as well. You drop acid on something, it just burns through. It eats away at the sacred creations that are within us. And this is why we must live an alkaline life. And alkalinity, as I said earlier in the show, is not just what you eat or what you drink. It is your thoughts. Everything that you put into the body and into the mind needs to be alkaline, because alkalinity leads to homeostasis, which is balance, which is peace, which is harmony, which is tranquility, which is consciousness. It's awareness. And that is the unification of 2 worlds. And you reduce all of that back, and it always comes to one. And the one is syncretism. That one truth, that God, dielectricity, against the sacred feminine, Mary Magdalene, mag in Sanskrit, motion, magnetism, constantly moving, and the friction created between them, electricity. Look in every single textbook definition of what electricity is, the friction. And the only way to achieve all of the secrets, the sacred secretions, the secrets within us, is to raise the chrism oil. And you can only raise the chrism oil if you raise the kundalini magnetic energy. Again, that sacred feminine within you. And you can't do that if you're gluttonous, if you're greedy, if you're lustful, if you're violent, if you're all about the satisfying the self. If the Bible or the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita teaches us anything, it is about service to God's creation. And that means we don't kill animals. It's common fucking sense. Animals are our friends. Animals provide for us just as we should provide to them. And if we are truly the shepherds, if we are magical creations, we human beings, and we are truly the shepherds of God's creation, the shepherd doesn't kill him.
These are 2 things we can do. anyone can save their chrism and regenerate their lives, and not be eating death animals. Anyone can do that. It's just about a decision. I made the decision in 2008 to stop eating animals. I've never looked back. I made the decision in 2012 to stop ejaculating. I've never looked back. Now, we have enough enemies against us today. Chemtrails, you can't stop those. Fluoridation in the water, can't stop that. You were vaccinated when you were young. Well, you didn't have any way of stopping that. You have a legal name which makes you the slave of the Roman maritime merchant law system. You're pretty much done with that. There are demons. There are evil people that want to rob you, steal from you. We have so many enemies. And yet, why do we invite two enemies into our lives, which is ingesting death and removing the life force from our very own organisms? There is great urgency in this, friends. This is the way to regenerate oneself so we can get out of this recycling, incarnating trap of death and debauchery. Look around. Is everyone happy? Is everyone healthy? Is everyone wealthy? Is there, abundant goodness in the world? You'll see that there's so many enemies and trouble and stuff that you have no power over. And yet these are two things which will have the most effect in your spirituality and the gaining of everlasting life and power that you can do today. You can start doing it today and see the benefits immediately, and yet we include also these enemies in our lives and we are surrounded. And no wonder people are killing themselves because they're depressed and they're on all kinds of medication and drugs. I've never taken any of that rubbish. I smoke my weed, yeah, and Mary Jane, that's about it. And I don't even, I'm the boss of that. I don't drink alcohol. I don't have anything that controls me, anything, not even my good old Mary. So, why? Why are we doing this to ourselves? That's something we need to, it's rhetoric, obviously. I don't need an answer to that, but we need to think. It's time to get on the narrow and difficult road, folks, because no one else is going to do it for us, and no one can. We don't have a vicarious saviour. There's no vicarious anything in the process of salvation. You do it yourself, okay? So I hope I've inspired the right people. I know that many will be offended, as did the ones. There was a crowd once following Jesus, and then he said, "Unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you will not be saved." And they all turned, except for a handful of loyal disciples, and they said, "Oh, who can listen to this speech? This is shocking." And Jesus turns around and looks at his disciples and says, "Have you also been stumbled?" And Peter said, "Lord, you have sayings of everlasting life. Where shall we go off to?" In other words, the crowd left the only place where you can get everlasting truth and life. They were offended. "Oh, Santos offended me. Oh, I'm offended." See the comedian Steve Hughes about being offended on YouTube, folks. And I'll leave it at that.
Brilliant. Steve is just absolutely wonderful. I would love to be able to talk to Steve, because I think that there's a lot there, and that is such a great example. And people are offended by the truth because it offends the tapeworm inside of them. It offends that ego, that false self. And let's just end the podcast with this, and let's be really, really honest. The fact of the matter is that in this world of ours, and however many people there are here with us, there is a fraction of a single percent of humanity that has the first sense of who they really are. And that has to be the greatest tragedy of all. We've just become mask wearers, and we wear different masks to please different people, and we follow their words, we follow their instructions, and the Bible makes it clear. Ignorance, like you said, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. Ignorance is no forgiveness, is no salvation. You will find no salvation through your ignorance. It is time to listen to the truth, no matter how much it hurts you or offends you. I've been offended. I'll wake up tomorrow with leprosy. I've been offended. That bloody Santos offended me. And nothing happens. Nothing happens. But just listen, because our lives, this world has gone to hell in a handbasket because we've listened to the few. And we become the children of the moon goddess sin, ruling over us, living out of our left carnal brain. And as you were just talking about the way, that's what the Buddha wrote about.
Yep, sin is sinister, the left-hand pathers. Beware of the left-hand pathers. And thank you very much.
I mean, just absolutely brilliant stuff. And there have just been so many people asking about this last process and trying to understand the Garden of Eden within us, and the 4 rivers of the Garden of Eden being the 4 principal body fluids within us. But this process and this understanding is so key, is so important, because as Santos described in this podcast, that the preservation of these bodily fluids, once they are being kept and maintained, you are the shepherd. You are the shepherd of your flock. Your flock is the Garden of Eden within you. And your task as the shepherd is to keep your mind and body in an alkaline state. Alkaline bodily fluids, alkaline body, alkaline mind, alkaline thoughts. And when your 4 rivers are flowing pure within you in an alkaline state, there is nothing to prevent your cells from regenerating endlessly. That's what this purpose and process is for, and that's why it is mysticism. That's why we are the magical creations of the one true creator. And I just absolutely have to tip my hat to you, Santos, because again, I know that your health is still not quite at 100%, but you have really once again raised your game to the very, very top, highest level. And I really believe that the podcast that we've put together here, this is going to stand the test of time as the podcast, the video on the full understanding of raising the chrism oil, why it is so important, how to do it, and to achieve regeneration, to achieve eternal life through regeneration. So I want to thank you so very, very much, and just throw it back over to you for your final thoughts, final words.
Thanks, brother, and well said, very well said. Your complimentary comments there. You seem to have a good handle on this whole science and how it works, and you have the good high perspective of it. And so, happy is the man, as it says in the scripture, happy is the man who hears my words and does them. Not happy is the man who learns everything but doesn't apply them. It's the doing. It's the application of it, and the one who does will reap the eternal rewards.
And I believe that 100%. And this is what Colleen and I have committed ourselves to doing every single moment of every single day. We're doing the work. And again, when you hear that phrase from Santos and I about the necessity to do the work and to put oil in your lamp, again, what we're talking about is that your principal job in your existence is to preserve your 4 rivers of the Garden of Eden. You must keep your bodily fluids preserved and pure. That's why we exist, to become the regenerated man, so that we can have an eternal, perfect relationship with the Creator. And that is Santos' syncretism, and that takes you to the one and the oneness of this entire truth. So again, thank you so much, Santos. All of our love and appreciation to you. I said in the introduction that you are the true giant within the truth movement, and there's nothing that can dissuade me from knowing that you truly are, and your work is a true gift that that millions have opened themselves to. And as you said, now it's up to them to do the work. And again, on behalf of everyone that you've touched, I just want to say once again, thank you. And have a wonderful evening, my friend. And again, I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Baba. Okay.
Okay.